I'm Rod Martin. Thank you for watching. Happy New Year and a very happy January 6th, the day on which the Electoral College vote for Donald Trump is to be certified in Congress. And a certainly much happier January 6th than 4 years ago when we began to see just the fullness of the Democrats' police state tyranny unfold. The aim was never, ever about the protesters. Whether they did right or wrong is irrelevant, although clearly there is a right answer to that. The issue was always diverting your attention from the very real truth that a number of states' electoral college votes were highly questionable. The law is very clear that the vice president at that time, Mike Pence, had the right to set aside and ask for further investigation the disputed electoral slates. He did not, and there aren't any disputed ones this year, so Kamala Harris will not. But the law is clear, and if you want to change the law, change the law. They didn't want to change the law. They didn't have the votes to change the law. So instead, they distracted you with a fake insurrection, which we increasingly see to have been a Fedsurrection, just absolutely suffused with FBI assets. The whole thing was a sham. And we see from the tapes that Speaker Johnson has released, the Capitol Police were giving these people guided tours through the Capitol. They gently walked Buffalo Shaman guy all the way into the House chamber, opening doors for him. None of these people were armed. How do you have a violent overthrow of the government if nobody shows up with a gun? The entire thing was absurd, but it didn't matter because the Democrats were certain that their allies in the media would lie to you sufficiently to keep you distracted, and the issue would no longer be whether the 2020 election was stolen. Regardless of whether it was or it wasn't, they would be able to demonize Donald Trump and you with him once and for all. But we see what they did to these people. You have countless people in solitary confinement without a speedy trial 4 years later, even people who weren't in Washington. And this is exactly what the Democrats intended to roll out for all of us had they been able to consolidate power in the last election 2 months ago. This is what we're really dealing with in America, a totalitarian party that is absolutely on the cusp of not only power, but the ability to consolidate that power in a way we can never really come back from. It would take an armed insurrection to come back from such a thing. And that's exactly why Elon Musk kept telling you all last year that if we don't elect Donald Trump, there won't be another election. Well, there probably would be another election. The Soviet Union always had elections. Cuba has elections. Venezuela has elections. They just don't mean anything anymore. And that's why free speech matters. That's why the freedom to assemble matters. That's why a free press, which we really only have now with X and a handful of other conservative outlets, all of these things are vital to your ability to know the truth, to act on the truth, and to actually live in a society that functions on truth and not a society that functions on rounding up its political enemies and putting them in prison, as we're seeing in the United Kingdom even now. Keir Starmer, the head of the Socialists, comes into power and immediately releases 5,000 violent criminals from his prisons to make room for people who post memes that are critical of his government. This is totalitarianism. It may not be the kind of, Death Star blowing up Alderaan tyranny that you imagine, but it's tyranny nonetheless. The idea of the rule of law is that everyone is treated equally and innocent until proven guilty. The idea of a police state is we can do anything to anybody that we want whenever we feel like it. Everyone lives in fear, so everyone complies. That's what the Democrats did 4 years ago. They didn't have time, as it turns out, to fully consolidate power. Thankfully, We had 6 Supreme Court justices. We had tons of courageous state governors like Ron DeSantis. And we had a lot of Republicans in Washington who were willing to throw sand in the totalitarian gears. That is the brilliance of our Constitution. The parliamentary systems in Britain and Canada, where Justin Trudeau is falling today, in Australia, in New Zealand, all failed because in a parliamentary system, the majority party rules, and it is a near absolute rule. They are basically elected dictators, and the only thing restraining them is tradition. Tradition is not a strong enough bulwark for liberty. That's why our founding fathers gave us the Constitution that we have. That's why we've been able to hold out when all these other free countries have not. That's why we haven't had to have any kind of armed insurrection, though the founding fathers made sure that we could have one if we needed it. Thank you, Second Amendment. But we don't have to, because we can still stand. We have means to get the truth. We have means to act on it. I encourage you to share the Rod Martin Report with your friends and family. This is a source for truth. This is a place where you'll get the straight. And we need more of those. So I encourage you, get involved in your local Republican Party. Get involved in good conservative groups that are making a difference. Get involved in your local church, which absolutely is the linchpin of the whole thing. As more people come to faith, fewer people will be willing to worship the God of government. And definitely subscribe to the Rod Martin Report and other good news sources that can help you discern what's really going on. We have to be sons of Issachar in this time, understanding the times and what to do in them. That's what we're all about here. So Happy New Year again. Happy January 6th. And thank God that we got a reprieve from what the Democrats have planned for us. May we use it well to dismantle the police state structures they have created in their time in power since 2008.